Learn your own rules. Have you ever had the desire to roleplay as an overworked, exhausted kitchen laborer who's rushing around a sweaty kitchen trying to make enough food to satisfy some angry customers and make a buck or two? Well, you're in luck. Kitchen Rush is here, a game where you can roleplay as if you're in Hell's Kitchen, except you don't have a dreamy Englishman calling you a donkey.
Donkey. Donkey.
Before we jump into the game, I want to mention that I'm not going to go into the expansion here at all, just the base game. And if you haven't seen any of the other videos in my extensive playlist, you'll know that we aren't going to go over any of the rules here. There are plenty of videos out there that do a fantastic job of explaining Kitchen Rush and how it's played. So if you'd like to get an idea for how the gameplay works before going on, try one of the links in the top right hand corner and to come back when you're done. Kitchen Rush is a recent Kickstarter release from designers David Turksey and Vangelis Bagertes that seeks to carve out its own corner in the crowded genre of cooperative real-time restaurant-themed board games that has been dominated by Walkstar for years. But how does it fare against the time-tested classic? Is it time for good Tim Bowers to hang up his chef's hat? Like all real-time cooperative games, Kitchen Rush is half about actually playing the game, and half about managing the inevitable chaos that rains down on the table when multiple players are trying to collectively accomplish a dozen different tasks at the same time. Unlike some more restrictive real-time cooperative games, Kitchen Rush scales exceptionally well at all player counts, with each count providing a different level of disarray based on your tastes. If you prefer it as a slight garnish on the side of an engaging souffle, the 2-player mode gives you a decent amount of control over the escalating level of chaos. But if you prefer utter anarchy as your hors d'oeuvre, entree, and dessert, then 4 players tosses you into a state of utter and complete pandemonium. The fact that Kitchen Rush is an exceptionally tactile game really plays up the level of chaos, particularly since the penalties of making a mistake, such as misplating food or knocking over a sand timer, can really cost you dearly. That combined with the unforgiving objective goals means you're going to fail quite a bit in the first few games, which is a good thing. Failure? Why would we want to fail? Luckily, the answer is simple. Cooperative games need a good level of difficulty in order to stay interesting. If you could win every game, it would start to get old very quickly, even if it felt like there was a moderate level of difficulty. What keeps you on your toes in cooperative games is the knowledge that you can fail, and it works here. Kitchen Rush is a difficult game, but it feels possible because so little of the game is random. You aren't going to win your first game, even on easy, but you probably will win the second, and as you slowly progress through the different difficulty ranks, your group will palpably feel themselves improving and growing more efficient, which gives you a sense of progress, and that's fun. This sense of improvement gives Kitchen Rush its element of replayability, since the game is all about becoming more skilled, rather than simply going through a list of preset scenarios. I mean, really, some of the higher level difficulties have crazy objectives that I'm not even sure human beings can accomplish. But then again, I never thought we would get gold on pizza either, so I guess anything's possible. It's fortunate that the gameplay drives replayability, because the game itself offers little in the way of variety. There are only 4 upgrades that can be purchased every game, which means it's possible and even likely that most games you'll end up with all of them. There are the prestige cards as well, but they're rewarded randomly, so they're hard to rely on, and many of the cards didn't feel powerful enough to really justify the cost that comes associated with them. Plus, despite there being almost 100 order cards, including the Kickstarter exclusives, none of them are that different from one another. Each card has separate ingredients on it, sure, and some require 2 plates, but at the end of the day, there's no significant difference between having an order require 2 meat and a vegetable, and an order that requires 2 meat and a bread. Which begs the question, why does the game need so many of them? The orders represent the only real random aspect of Kitchen Rush, which doesn't necessarily bother me, but it doesn't add much, other than the chance that you might have 5 orders that require 15 meat at the same time. Having so many potential orders seems excessive, and actually detracts from the game's strategic relevance, as you have no real way of knowing what may be coming down the line, and you have no way to plan for it. Kitchen Rush is a game built around strong, cooperative mechanics, which is good, because the theme bounces around like an armless clown riding a lopsided buffalo. There are areas where the game's theme really shines through, like how ingredients required for dishes fit perfectly, or that each cube color represents a different spice. These are wonderful little touches that add to the experience, but just as often as they come up, the game throws theme completely out the window, like having a separate bag that you store all the spices in. Alright, got my plate. Now I just need to get a little bit of salt, and maybe some oregano. I get that it's intended to slow the game down, but it adds a fiddly element that Kitchen Rush doesn't need. Also, I don't know any kitchens that send employees out half a dozen times in the middle of a lunch rush to buy ingredients. The sand timers also stand out as poor thematic execution, as they imply that every action should take the same amount of time. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure I could wash a couple of plates a lot faster than it takes to bake a pizza. Kitchen Rush isn't the first game to use sand timers, and while I think their inclusion is interesting here, they just aren't utilized very well. I would like to have seen the sand timers be location specific, and have varying lengths. Then, instead of placing a sand timer at a location, you could place a worker piece instead, and flip the sand timer that corresponds to the action you're taking. This would keep a strong thematic flavor by allowing you to differentiate longer actions from shorter ones. And it would introduce another layer of strategy to the game, where you're forced to plan around different action lengths. I wish that were my only gripe with the timers, but even though they're ultimately a draw for the game, they also render it potentially unplayable. On more than one occasion, I've had timers get stuck and stop running, which is something you'll never notice right away amidst everything else going on in the game. And that isn't even their greatest issue, which is, well, here, take a look. I mean, look at them, they're not even close! I could see some level of variation between these, but this is absurd. The game is completely unplayable like this. I can't even adjust the sand levels myself because I'm not sure which one is correct. In all fairness, I'm sure this is the type of issue that Artipia Games would replace without question. That's something I haven't done because I borrowed this copy from a friend. But even still, considering these are the most crucial components required to play this game, having them made so poorly is a glaring issue. And that's not the only component that I've got gripes with. In fact, everything aside from the wooden bits have a problem or two. The player boards all have the same avatar on them, which is lame. At the bare minimum, give us different characters to play as. And while we're at it, how about boards that aren't only slightly thicker than a standard piece of copy paper? The order cards are hard to read up close, and completely illegible while on the table, especially while the game is in full swing. The board itself looks fine, but the overall design isn't astounding. The design of the iconography and the font choice really clash with the general aesthetic of the rest of the board. Ultimately, it makes it just look like a nice prototype rather than a finished, polished product. Oh, if you've got somebody in your group that's colorblind, you better not send them to that spice bag because let me tell you from experience, the red and green cubes are impossible to differentiate. Artipia had the decency to at least make them different sizes, but the effect is negligible because you'll never be able to tell them apart inside the bag. And since you're racing against the clock, there's no time to pull them out to compare. And while I'm on the subject of clocks, can I say how annoying it is for a game to provide you 10 sand timers, then tell you to run a timer on your phone to track around? Why couldn't they have included a 4-minute sand timer, or an egg timer, or something? I'm not against apps in games, but considering the other components, what a strange choice. Which brings us to the age-old question of whether or not Kitchen Rush is a good game and if you should buy it. Going into this review, I tried to avoid comparisons to Walkstar as much as possible, but seeing how both games tackle the same goal, I think the comparisons are fair, especially since they both approach real-time co-op in drastically different ways. I really like the way Kitchen Rush incorporates dexterity mechanics into the gameplay through the manipulating of sand timers and the ingredients. It also really shines when you hit those moments where you and your group are in the zone, and things are working like a well-oiled machine. But I infinitely prefer Walkstar due to the better developed upgrade system. Not only in the player upgrades, but also in the way the game starts with a slimmed down menu and lets you expand it based upon your playstyle. Walkstar also tends to feel more like a team game. Turns happen so quickly in Walkstar, and your help may be needed at any time, so you're always trying to pay attention to everything that's going on. Kitchen Rush definitely has moments like that too, but it also has several moments where you're completely focused on your own thing, and you don't really care what others are up to. Primarily because there are only a couple avenues for you to directly help a teammate. The deciding factor between these two games is really the group that you play with. Kitchen Rush is tailor-made for groups that want to dedicate a lot of time to it and learn the intricacies of playing together, similar to something like Vast of the Crystal Caverns. But Walkstar is a better choice if you play with different people on a regular basis, or you don't plan on pulling it off the shelf more than a couple times a month. Even with their differences, I highly doubt there's going to be room in many players' collection for both games. And in the end, I have to recommend Walkstar over Kitchen Rush, unless the specific boons I've mentioned really speak to you. And if you are that person, you're in luck. The Kickstarter for the expansion is still running for a couple of days. You can get the base game there as well. Or if it's a little bit too rich for your blood, keep your eye on your favorite online retailer for when it comes back in stock. Thanks for watching, folks. Game on.